This video is for you if you're an African who's been wondering what's been happening in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Many of us are being unalived and eaten by other people.
Or perhaps you're an African who's been wondering why you should be conscious about what is happening in the Democratic Republic of Congo. In the next 5 minutes, I'll try to briefly outline what has been happening within this space, but also where this conflict came from. I wouldn't be doing justice to this conflict if I don't take you back to 1994, where we saw the end of a genocide that took over 1 million Tutsis in Rwanda. The genocide was executed by the Hutus in Rwanda, who had the aim of wiping out the Tutsi ethnicities within Rwanda. Now, two things happened at this time that are still recurring at the time of the conflict currently. We saw that during the genocide, we saw millions of Tutsis running away or migrating from Rwanda and trying to find settlements in other countries, and specifically also within the eastern region of the Democratic Republic of Congo. But post the genocide, we saw Hutus also migrating from Rwanda and trying to settle within the Democratic Republic of Congo, specifically the Hutu extremists who had executed the genocide. Now, why this is important is because naturally we are seeing conflict between these two groups, and we are seeing more conflict with the president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, who came after the Hutu extremists who had tried to settle within the Democratic Republic of Congo post the genocide. Another ethnic group that is important to talk about within this region is the Banyamulenge tribe. Now, the Banyamulenge tribe is important because it's an ethnic group that has been trying to find its ethnic identity within the Democratic Republic of Congo and trying to find acceptability within the Democratic Republic of Congo. That is why we have seen flare-ups of the Banyamulenge tribe conflicting or fighting for their land against the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo and the UN forces that are available within the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, the Banyamulenge tribe is a result of the Berlin Conference and the divisive nature within which we saw borders being drawn in Africa, and these borders are what we recognize as carvings of the African continent currently. The borders that were drawn between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo are responsible for the demarcation that we see of the Tutsi people who are now in Rwanda and also in the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo, who make up part of the Banyamulenge tribe as well. Now, from 1996 going forward, we have seen the Democratic Republic of Congo war, or flare-ups of the wars that have been defined as the Great War of Africa, taking over 6 million lives. And what is important about this war, or what is important about this conflict, is the fact that it takes up over half a dozen of African countries in terms of contributing to this war. And we have seen that the Democratic Republic of Congo takes up space in the east, west, and also part of the southern Africa. Now, my question to you is, if you are within the Banyamulenge tribe, or if you are within the epicenter of this conflict, what should we do to stop this conflict? What is the African countries, or what are African countries doing to contribute to this conflict, possibly in more negative ways? And what is our role as Africans in terms of being able to stop this conflict as soon as possible? My name is Ivan Munashe, and I am an African. Our voices. In the past couple of decades in Africa, we have seen conflict being responsible for the displacement of a lot of Africans. According to the United Nations, it has been stated that about 45 million Africans have been displaced internally within the African continent, with Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo being the top two countries with the most displacements in the African continent. Specifically, looking at the Democratic Republic of Congo conflict, we have seen over 6 million people dying since 1996 and the inception of the conflict that has been in the Congo region. Today on the podcast, I am happy to be joined by one of the activists who is doing work to make the situation in the Democratic Republic of Congo better, but also who has an understanding of what is happening in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And in addition to that, we'll be talking to him about the whole situation in Congo and also his experience of being within the region as well. So Today on the podcast, I have Steven Muragwa. But before we go to Steven, I just wanted to thank InSurvey for supporting and also sponsoring this episode. And within that regard, if you want to use InSurvey, please go to InSurvey. And also, please feel free to use them for all your survey needs. If you want a customized survey, if you want a pre-designed survey, InSurvey are the people to go to cover all your services in terms of staff satisfaction surveys, employee engagement survey, and also tracer studies as well. Now, let's get down to business. Steven, thank you so much for joining us within the podcast. And maybe just to kick things off, I introduced you as an activist, but also maybe take the baton from that and introduce yourself. Who are you? Where are you? And specifically, how did you get to the point at which you are and we are having this conversation currently?
Hi, my name is Steven, and the pleasure is all mine. And thank you very much for inviting me here today. I've had similar conversations many times, and it's always a pleasure to talk about these issues. I know for sure, and I believe in it because talking about it this much, spreading awareness about it, um, it has some kind of impact that's making, and because we are doing something to help. As you said, my name is Steven Muragwa. I have many names. I am called Nduwayo. I am called Gapara. All those are my names. I am a Congolese. Was born in Congo in a province called Katanga, now called Tanganyika. That's where I was born. But when I was around 3 years old, we fled war, and then I became a displaced in another province called South Kivu. That's where I pretty much grew up until I became a refugee. So right now I am located in Canada. That's where I've been living for the past few years, in the city called Ottawa, if that's it necessary. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephen. And yeah, again, thank you so much for making time for us. And I just wanted to find out a bit more with what you have spoken about. You said you were displaced when you were 3 years old.
Yeah, sorry. Yes.
Take me through that. What kind of displacement did you face, and what does that mean to people who don't actually know what being displaced means?
To be honest with you, at that age, you really don't know anything except the stories you hear from the parents. I am from a tribe called Banyamulenge in DRC. You may have heard of it because it has been being spoken about during this war a lot. Um, and that's my tribe. And in 1998, there was a war targeting them in the province called Katanga, where they were exterminated completely. There's no Mnyamulenge left in that areas anymore. So that's where I was born. When I was 2 years, two and a half years old or 3 years old, that's when we started the journey of becoming refugees, running from wars, moving from place to place. So at that point, as I said, I don't know much because I was still too young to remember anything.
Yeah.
But the life became more difficult when we reached South Kivu. That's where we really became. So during that time in Katanga, we were displaced. We were refugees running for our lives, but the pain became even more when we lived in the South Kivu province because we lost everything that we owned. Our houses have been burned, and everything that we owned has either been looted or burned down by the people who were coming after us. So now we found ourselves in a new province with pretty much nothing on us. We lived of help from international organizations for the first few months or even a year until we had to also move again because of many reasons, some of them connected to the same insecurity and also many sicknesses of where we were, malaria. In the place that we were living at the time, there was it has a very high level of malaria, so we had to kind of move again, and we found our extended families in the mountains of Haut Plateau, if you've heard of it. It's in the eastern of Congo. So again, that's where we lived for the next many years. Again, the life was not easy, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, I cannot. I wanted to say I can imagine it, but I don't want to lie to you. I cannot even imagine how the life was in that time. But just taking it back a bit. Last week I did a short clip for the podcast just to introduce the topic, and part of the conversation that I spoke about was the Banyamulenge tribe, and for everybody who also wants to get context into the life of Steven, you can go to M Kapara 17 on TikTok and also on YouTube. Just search for him on YouTube. We're going to put the links at the bottom here so that you can also just search for him to get full context of the story. But I also wanted to speak specifically with regards to the Banyamulenge tribe. Can you tell us more about the Banyamulenge tribe? Specifically, you say they were wiped out within the region that you were in. Can you tell us about how they came about to be and why there is so much conflict that is targeted towards them, specifically in the Congo region?
Um, Sometimes I ask myself the same questions because yes, we are called many names to dehumanize us in the DRC. We are called refugees. We are called Rwandese. We are called so many names, to be honest. But there are many times where I found myself asking myself many questions like that. Why are we hated this much to the point where we are being targeted and even eaten? I've seen many videos and many stories, of many of us being unalived and eaten by other people. That's how much the hatred is in the DRC. But again, it's a small community of people that's located in South Kivu, that's in the eastern of Congo. We have been there for many centuries before even the division of Africa. But I think the problems become we became a target. We started to become a target right after the independence of the DRC, which happened in 1960. There was a rebellion called Simba Rebellion that came targeting us. After that, the ideology of exterminating us, that's when it started until they restarted. They started revoking our nationalities. They started pushing ideologies to kick us out of the country. But during that time, it was a big problem because we had to constantly move and flee the conflicts and lose our belongings because we are a tribe or a community that's more about like having many cows and pasture stuff like that. So we started losing our cows. We started being pushed out of our land. We started experiencing a lot of stuff really in the between the 60s and the 90s, but it became more worse in the 90s. That's when you hear about the stories of myself, who was born in Katanga, that we are no longer living there. And the more the years came, that's when the conflict, the hatred, the ideologies started to even increase. One of the biggest reason I can say here that pushed this ideology to become a bigger problem than it already was is somehow connected to the genocide of Rwanda, if you've read about it a little bit. So
Yeah.
the genocide of Rwanda happened in 1994. And this genocide was the genocide against the Tutsi people, and the Hutu committed genocide. After the genocide, the party that's in power right now, the RPF, or I don't know the names because they keep changing, but the Kagame, who is the president of Rwanda right now, was leading a movement that overthrew the government and took power. So many people who committed the same genocide fled to Congo in 1994. I'm talking about millions of them. And these people entered with their own arms because they were not disarmed when they entered in Congo. So, because we are somehow the same as the Tutsi of Rwanda as well as the Tutsi of Burundi, So I think they were surprised to know that they were chased by Tutsis somewhere, and now where they fled, they found another population of the same people. So the same genocide continued, and the same ideologies continued. The same ideology that was used in Rwanda also continued in Congo. That's when many problems rose, and we started again fleeing. We have many refugees in Rwanda, in Burundi, in Tanzania, in Uganda, in many countries in the eastern the east in the East Africa that fled since 1994 after those people entered Congo. So again, since then it has become a problem after another. Congo has peace for 2 years, but out of nowhere, you hear that there is also another rebel that just started. There was a rebel group. There was sorry, let me start that. There was a movement called AFDEL that started the war in 1996 to remove the leadership of Mobutu. After that, there was RCD, which split after having some conflicts between themselves. One became RCD Goma, RCD, yeah, RCD Goma, and another one became RCD Kisangani. That was in 1998. In 2004, there was another one. In 2009, there was another one called Sendipe, and the M23 that we're going through right now started in 2012 and 2013. So it has been the same situations, even in between. There were many other issues connected to rebel groups that weren't national yet to the point where they can be spoken about that much in the media. But again, we've never uh, been at peace in Congo. And when I'm talking about this, it's not just us. I mean, yes, we are targeted, and our issue looks a little bit different from other people, but all of us are experiencing the same insecurity in many ways. Now,
Mm. And you know what's fascinating about for me, okay, for lack of a better word, you know what amazes me about the Banyamulenge tribe is the fact that for for the most of your identity, and I think if my history serves me well, from the Berlin Conference, you have always been a people that have been both in Burundi and Congo. But because of the Tutsi identity, I've seen some people even on TikTok saying othering the Banyamulenge tribe and saying that uh, there is no Congolese who is Tutsi, as an example, as a statement that is said, which goes further to what we're talking about in terms of being hated, but also people eating other people and the othering that we've always seen in African countries. When African people get into contact with other people from other African countries, there seems to be a lot of conflict that happens there. And you have experienced it almost all your life. What is your earliest memory of remembering that or identifying yourself as a person who's othered within the Katanga region or within the Democratic Republic of Congo? What is your earliest memory of that? And how did you come to realize that you are part of a group that is othered?
so our story is different, and it has many information around it where everyone is making up some stuff to push their ideology or narratives based on what they're getting from it. There are people who are here on TikTok pushing the same ideologies for likes, and because they know it's trending and it's a topic that anybody or everybody is talking about. And this has become a big problem for us to the point in Congo right now where the Banyamulenge people live, they can't really travel by foot because they are somehow in the middle of other areas occupied by other tribes. And the bigger tribes are Babembe, are Bafuliru, are Banyindu, and those are the tribes that we've been always having some conflicts with. So now that the war is going on, we are somehow in the middle of all those tribes, which means to from where you live, because many of the Banyamulenge people live in villages, because as I said, they are the people who live with cows and who takes care of that kind of stuff. So they live most of them live in villages. So to be able to go to small cities or even bigger cities for food or to buy stuff is it's almost impossible right now because of those same conflicts. Because the to get to where they want to go, they have to cross other tribes that are targeting them. So it became a problem. And the memories I have many. If you see us being not being accepted as Congolese on the internet, I think you can understand the same level of discrimination when you are within the country, when you have to seek for documentation in the government, where you, because we are the minority, and when I say, yeah, every tribe in Congo is minority because we have many of them, but when we talk about the minorities, because we are still one of the smallest tribes in Congo, so which means we study with other tribes, we go to school with them, we share all this social stuff together, which means we are still less than them. Now, when you find yourself in that kind of situation with people who don't consider you as a Congolese, even though you are, with people who even shows how much they hate you, who can, cause not everybody can say whatever they want here on social media, even though they are pushing it. They find nice ways to do it. But when it's in person, there's no camera or anybody else watching. You can imagine a lot of stuff that goes on. So yeah, we experienced a lot of stuff like that, the discrimination when the conflicts like this happen. You get to a point where you can travel safely. You have to go with other people, many of them in a group because of the insecurity. You can trust your own army, you can trust your own police. So yeah, it's been a big problem, and many memories that we have in Congo are like that, where we have to be chased out of our villages and to see them burn, where you have to see someone you grew up with, your friend, who went to school and never comes back, where you there are many things that we've experienced that are sometimes even harder to talk about, but that's not the only problem. After that life of discrimination and many conflicts in the DRC, we find ourselves in also refugee camps where we live in tents, we treated again the worse, because now we find ourselves, and refugees are not well treated by the citizens of a country that they seek refuge in. So yeah, we've had many
Yeah.
experiences that are very hard to kind of explain sometimes, because it sounds like something that never happened. When when somebody asks you, like you are asking me, and you tell them a story that you've seen videos or your family member was butchered and eaten, like you eat beef or whatever. Some people don't believe it. They be like, who
Mm.
can do such thing? There are some kind of those stories that are even harder to describe. But again,
Mm.
that's the story of many people in the eastern of Congo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to ask, so I'm just thinking of the genocide that happened in Rwanda in the 1994s. And thinking of that, there was connotations of people being called cockroaches as an example. And based on that, there was efforts to exterminate them. For the Banyamulenge tribe, is there an allegation that states that this is why they are being attacked, or what are some of the reasons that are given, or stereotypes or prejudices that are given for attacking them? You mentioned that you are hated, and people, like you spoke about the cannibalism that happens around these attacks. But why are they happy? Do they have any stereotype or any basis for the hatred?
Yeah, the same words are used against us as well. And sometimes you see even government officials using the same words in public, asking the public to do whatever they want, to buy machetes and attack them, because We are sometimes referred to as Rwandese, which means anytime you hear that word, it has become like a death sentence in Congo. So I don't know if you've been in many discussions of Congolese. If you have a different opinion than them, they label you as a Rwandese or they label you those kind of stuff just to dehumanize you. It has become a problem where you can be grabbed on the street and be burned alive and nobody can question it as long as you are called Rwandese. So there are many speeches that we've heard from ministers. Like there is a minister called Bitakwira who usually uses those kind of words. There is even one where he said that all Tutsis are naturally born killers, which means we are somehow all killers. So they use those similar words that they used in Rwanda, or some of them don't even say. There are people who say, okay, you are experiencing this, or we are doing this to you because you keep associating you with Rwanda. Rwanda invades Congo and you help them. But again, it's a lie because there are no like proof of everything they say. It's like somebody just picks up a phone and makes a video and say that Banyamulenge people came in Congo in 1994 or came in Congo as refugees in 62. They came as refugees in 59, even though there's nothing to support it or no evidence, because I'm 100% sure that you can't find such evidence. But they still run with it, and it works in their favors to push whatever narratives, which creates even more hatred against us. And the other thing you have to understand, when the people who went to school or intellectual people use the same words, especially people who work in the government, saying that kind of using that kind of words, or also making those kind of speeches in a country where we have the majority of people who didn't even go to school, because many of those villages they have people who are absolutely they never so school. They don't know how to write even their names. So when they hear that kind of speeches from people that they respect, that they went to school, they believe it. They believe it, and they use that to analyze people in mass. So there is a huge problem in Congo of identity, and also, but I think it always comes back to the government, because um, myself who lives in the Western countries, we don't live here peacefully because everybody here likes us. Let me use that word, even though it may not be true. We don't live here in peace. We don't have jobs, or we don't earn money, or you don't travel alone at night because other everybody around you likes you. We do that because there are laws that the government enforces, and somebody, even though they hate you, is afraid for the
Yeah.
consequences. Okay, so and that's the accountability that we lack in Congo, to the point where somebody can be eaten, be burned alive, and nobody questions it, or no government to step in and arrest somebody who did that. No government to even make a simple statement saying that whatever happened is wrong. So people can do that. That's what gives them even the confidence of doing such thing, and then put it on a video and post it on the internet. It's because not even blurring their faces. It's because that's how confident they are. They know for sure that if we do this, there is no accountability. There is nothing after this, as long as this person will killing is Rwandese. So yeah, there are so many things around that. But again, I wouldn't say that problems of Congo, or a lot of conflicts that have been happening in Congo, are only about Banyamulenge people or the Tutsi people in general. No, I wouldn't say that, because I'll be lying. So the
Yeah.
issues we may be a pawn that many people are using to get to whatever they want. That I can say that, but that still doesn't remove that we are victims, because whatever they're coming after, we're not benefiting from it, but we're paying for it. Our blood, our family members, and our people are paying for it. So again, in Congo, we have over 200 rebel groups, even though even
Mm.
if it's 100. Imagine 100 rebel groups in one country. In Congo, we have a very corrupt government. In Congo, we have the problem of minerals. We have something that many countries want to get their hands on. Okay, we have so that discrimination that has been pushed since the 90s, and now kids are being born, they go to school and be like, these people are not your people. Don't like these people. When you see them, do something to them. Okay, and they do all that on video. I've seen many videos where teachers use the same speeches to kids in school. So this is a huge problem, and we have many problems like that in Congo, but that doesn't remove the fact that there are people who are paying for it. Yeah.
Yeah. I always say that stereotypes and prejudices, they always find life or they find mobility in government systems. So some people can have a stereotype, but if a government official, for example, says something that supports it, then they act upon it. If they say something negative against that stereotype, then people are bound not to act towards it. So I think you're correct to say that the things that the government says has a bearing on how people respond to these stereotypes. Before we speak about what is happening currently, I know you were going there already. Before we speak about what is happening currently in the Democratic Republic of Congo, specifically in the eastern part, I just wanted you to take us maybe through what was it like to live as a refugee in your own country. You were born in that country and you're living as a refugee in that country. Can you take us through that and how that unfolded?
The life was tough. As I said again, losing everything and now relying on the aid of some people who also don't have much because um, for the first year after becoming displaced, we were living off of other organizations that were helping us, but they did that for the next few months, and then they left. So now we were left alone. We were kids, of course, but we can see the suffering where we can spend 2 days or one day without food. Then we had to move again to find our extended families in the mountains where they were living in villages. So the life was not easier today because we were huge families that came in other villages that are not that are also poor, to rely on them on everything, on housing, on what we wear, on what we eat. So again, you can understand that was not okay because of how we were treated and how we were being seen. There are times when somebody helps you back and you don't see them doing it out of love just because of it wasn't a simple life. We really struggled a lot for us to get back to our feet. I don't think we even got to that point. But again, before we were still constructing ourselves to better the life that we had at the time, we found ourselves in refugee camps in other countries. So that I think that's where the life became even worse. It was definitely worse. Living in tents for years, living some place where you are secured by some kind of fences because they put policemen around the refugee camps, which means to get out of the refugee camp, you have to ask for some kind of permission and all that. So um, living in that life for that long is very hard. But in within the country, it was hard, but I would say that we would have survived because we still had the opportunity to go to school. We still had the opportunity to be able to kind of have our own field where our parents can go to field and then make something out of it. But becoming a refugee outside of Congo, I think that's when the life became uh, uh, very bad.
How many countries did you stay in as a refugee before making it to Canada?
One. So
Okay.
we left DRC, and then we went to Burundi where we stayed for over a decade. I think it was 13 years if I'm not wrong. So yeah.
Okay. I'm even hesitant to ask this question because it might be sensitive, and let me know if it's too sensitive. But through this time, was your family still intact, and is your family still intact through this period?
Yes, like my biological family, I mean my parents and my siblings, yes.
Okay, okay. At least that's some positive to take away from that. So, so Stephen, so tell us what is happening currently in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Like I know there is conflict, maybe overall, but also in the eastern part of Congo. So what is happening currently?
So, a lot of things are happening at once. Sometimes it's very hard to track what's happening in the DRC because of those complicated things that I talked about, having so many rebel groups and also having civilians who have now the power to act as people in power. I don't know. But the biggest problem we have right now is the M23 rebel groups that's fighting the government of Congo and has been, I think, since 2021. Right now, the M23 is in control of two major cities in the eastern of Congo, the city of Goma as well as the city of Bukavu, but it is also in control of the almost the whole province of North Kivu. But right now, it is still fighting to be able to control a big part of South Kivu. Right now, they only have the capital city of that province and many other small cities around it, but they haven't gotten to a point where they can control a big part of it, or at least some of the strategic cities in that province.
So what does so in terms of someone who does not understand that, right? Okay, the M23 group, and we have heard of affiliations of it with Rwanda and also affiliations that it has with Tutsi people as a tribe. How far true is that? I know you can't say if Paul Kagame is sponsoring them or anything, or if you can't know that, but how far true is that? And does it mean that existing as a Tutsi in that region is easier than existing maybe as a Congolese or as another tribe
Which region?
in the Eastern Congo?
Okay, okay. So, there are many things that we can be 100% sure, especially when it comes to who is backing who. But based on the UN reports, the Rwanda is backing M23, and there are many reports that came out. That's why I think the Rwandan government is being sanctioned by many Western countries, Belgium, UK, and now Canada. So, which means there are some kind of connection between those kind of relations. But looking as a citizen, a simple citizen, I would say that M23 for sure has somebody backing them up, because you have to think of it in many ways. When M23 started, it was a rebel group kind of created by Tutsi. And when I talk about Tutsi, you have to understand that there is a difference. So in the North Kivu province, there is Tutsi, and in South Kivu, there are Banyamulenge. So the M23 started in North Kivu, which means it was somehow started by Tutsi, and a big part of that movement was supported by the kind of communities or manpower. Because saying that the whole community or people supported a rebel group would be wrong, because it can be true. Not everybody can support a rebel group, which is something that many of my fellow Congolese have been pushing. I don't understand why they do that, where if a movement is started by um, this tribe, someone from this tribe, like me here, if I started a rebel group tomorrow, now my whole tribe is included in it, even though they weren't where I started or where I made that decision. So I think it's very wrong if we say it like that. But when it started, the general who was the lead of M23 is a Tutsi called Sultan Makenga, but the leader, the actual leader of M23 is not a Tutsi, is a Mushi called Bertrand Bisimwa. So when the movement started, it started like that, but when they started occupying many cities and small villages, every city that they occupied, they recruited young people to join their movement. And many people actually were joining, which means they weren't only Tutsis, because Tutsi are not even, I think, 5% of the population that live in that province. So many people joined. And many of those were from other tribes. But one of the biggest thing that they say they're fighting for is for the rights and freedom of Tutsi people, like any other tribes in the DRC. So the reason I said I started with that, the reason I said looking at it as a simple or irregular citizen saying that the M23 must or may be supported by somebody is how strong they were. Because when the war started, there was the Congolese army, that's one. And the Congolese army, which is something I never supported and still don't understand how they did that. There was the Congolese army and there was the Wazalendo. And when you hear that name, the Wazalendo are those rebel groups, the whatever many rebel groups that are in the eastern of Congo who were combined, and then they gave them weapons, and now they called them a new name called Wazalendo to help them fight against the M23. So, as somebody who has been experiencing many atrocities in Munyamulenge, who has been experiencing many atrocities from these Mai Mai, Bilozi, Bishambuke, and many of those rebel groups, I wasn't really, I didn't like that idea, because now imagine somebody who has been analyzing you like that. Now he has the power in the guns, the new guns from the government, and now working in the being able to secure villages and all that. It wasn't a good decision, and I think that's something that the Congolese government is going to regret soon or in the future, because these people have been responsible for a lot of lootings, a lot of rapings, a lot of problems that have been happening because they gave them weapons without any training. People who were in the jungles stealing stuff, analyzing people, and doing all this criminal stuff. Now they have been given the authority to do whatever they want as a national army. So when the war started, there was the Congolese army. Sorry for mixing stuff up
No,
sometimes.
it's fine.
And then there was that group called Wazalendo people who were the rebels that were combined. And then there was the military from the South Africa. There was Burundian army. There was also even Malawi. There was also I think Tanzania also had just joined. So imagine having six or seven, actually six different armies fighting against one rebel group, but they were never able to defeat them. So they took city after city after city. So looking at the how strong they were as a rebel group fighting with five countries, yet they were defeating them, and they were also mercenaries from the Europe. Many mercenaries that came from the Europe to help also, but they defeated everyone and they took city after city. So based on that, on how that rebel group is strong, because it is still doing the same thing today. That was one thing that taught me that these people may be supported by somebody from somewhere. And the second thing is that, occupying a city or being able to kick out the government for them to occupy it, that's one. But they have to also leave many manpower or military in that city or village to be able to continue to secure it, right? They don't just kick them out and then they go for good, because you have to also secure civilians. So having knowing a rebel group that has done many military who are going to control the city, and then leave hundreds of some of their soldiers to secure that city, and then occupy another one, leave many others to secure the same city. So and then keep going on like that, with the same strategy. I think you have to understand that there is no rebel group that can have the access to that many people or that many soldiers. So I understand that, as I said, when they started getting control of many cities, they recruited many people to join them, which may have made it easier for them. And also, when they every time they kicked out the Congolese army, they left many weapons that they can also use to continue the war. That's one. But at the start, or even now, there might be somebody behind them. That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And I can imagine all those countries that you mentioned that got involved, and this is one of the reasons why the conflict that has happened in Congo has been called almost the Great War of Africa. But also like hearing the rapes that happened when a prison was broken into a couple of weeks back. I think it only backs the story that you're talking about of all the experiences of invading territories also being involved in it are rapes and these things that are just disastrous for people to live through, and also showing how much of an entity the M23 has gotten into in terms of not only recruiting people but also resources that they have. So my question being, do you think the sanctions that the Western countries are putting on Rwanda are going to work in terms of depleting resources for the M23, or the M23 is already too big for that?
So at this point, it's very hard to say, because maybe if that happened when these wars started, but right now it's very hard to say. For many reasons, because right now the M23 is a whole army, because of those many people they recruited, because of those many weapons they were able to take over from the Congolese army, and because now they're controlling many provinces, which means they can impose a tax, they can ask people to pay for some stuff which can give them the funding they want to continue the war. So right now it's very hard to predict. Maybe Rwanda may not be involved, which can say, okay, from now on, we are not with you guys. Take care of yourselves. But at this point, I think it's very hard for them to just be like, we're not doing it. Okay, we retreat. We're not going to continue this. It's very hard for that, because that can also be a risk for many other things, because of the same thing that I said. Now the Congolese army is mixed with those rebel groups called Wazalendo now, which means if the M23 retreat, that means there can be um, a revenge thing where they can target now anybody within the country who supported M23, because there are many people who supported it openly. So I think that can also create another chaos of its kind. But I don't think right now, I don't think it's very easy for the M23 to retreat. That's what happened in 2013. But they had only one city. Okay, they had only one city, which means retreating was easy, and there was some agreements that they made with the Congolese army, so or government. So right now, I don't think it can be easy for them to just retreat and say, okay, we give up.
Yeah. Now let's talk about one of the territories that have been recently captured and has been making headlines, which you spoke about as well, which is Goma. And maybe to contextualize that conversation, I was reading somewhere that one of the strategies that the M23 is using is to not only capture the city, but also force behaviors within that city, in terms of making sure that people are forced to go to school. And if children are not at school, the parents will have some sort of divisive punishment that goes towards that, and to make sure that there is some sort of order, so to speak, or some sort of a pretense of normal life within that city. I'm asking that question because I want to show you a video. And it's quite ironical because the person who recorded this was a Zimbabwean person. I don't agree with him on most of the cases, but also specifically on this one, also because I think it's also something that is propagandish. But I just want to hear your thoughts in terms of this video. Let me see, how do I share my video here? I want to share different screens.
While you're looking for that video, there is one question that you asked, and then I didn't answer it. As I said, when I'm talking to about these topics, there are many things that I miss out sometimes. So the prison and the rapings, you mentioned about it, but didn't talk about it. So or we can come back after that. Okay.
Okay, so this is a question that I'm asking you. What is the situation right now in Goma? So this person is a Zimbabwean. He functions almost as a journalist, although I don't agree with him on a lot of cases. But I just want to show you what he says, and then maybe you can respond from there also in response to the video. Yeah, I'm gonna play it.
I'm in Goma right now, and people told us that Goma is a war zone, but actually, look at that. School children going to school, people going to work. Have a look, have a look, have a look. Those are kids going to school. People told us that it's supposed to be a war zone. It's not a war zone. It's actually functional, hustling, bustling. People are going to work. Here in Goma, people actually catch the little scooters or the motorbikes to go to work because it's easier to get through traffic. The yellow buses, the yellow combis, those over there, those are combis that are taking people to work. M23 on the streets, the police of Goma also on the streets, protecting the people. It's not what we were told. And that's why it's important for us as Africans to be able to tell our own stories. That is why I've taken the time to come here to Congo, to Goma, to tell the story. We've traveled safely, we're currently safe, and we're under the protection of some very, very powerful people. So, until next time, from Goma, we'll show you what's going on.
So, about that video, I've watched it as well. I think I even posted a video of this guy. So I think it's very hard to deny someone who has a camera and showing us stuff. But again, it is also based on many experiences also to believe someone just because he's holding a video on the streets, because I think that can happen. Many cities around the world have some areas that are very secure, and there are many other areas that you can just go through without being like stolen stuff or many things like that. So it's very hard to say no when somebody took the time and paid his ticket to go and see it firsthand. And I've seen that many people on the internet where they are pushing those narratives, because in Goma, I have my family members there. They say that the life there is better than before the government had. So now, as I was saying, I have my family members in Goma right now. And they give testimony saying that yes, a lot of stuff are not working yet, like banks, and there are times when they didn't have electricity, and they didn't have water. The first few days they didn't even have water, and many of that kind of services stuff became a little bit expensive because of the post-war and all that. But they say when it comes to security, they're better than before. The reason I say that, the city was plagued with many of those Wazalendo people, and they created chaos in the city. They would loot, they would take phones from civilians, they would create these checkpoints just to get money. And this is real stories, and I can prove it, where they kind of come to a civilian and uh, like take the money from the pockets and all that. So that was a real problem. But right now they're saying that now that the M23 is in Goma, we don't they no longer have all those checkpoints. They no longer have to kind of be worried that somebody may break in and do stuff like that. But again, it is still a problem because of many reasons. Many people did not flee. After the city of Goma was overtaken, many people fled to Bukavu, especially the people who were fighting the war. Bukavu was not under M23 yet, which means many people took boats and then fled to Bukavu way before even the war happened. But the people who resisted and fought against M23. You know, there was a very big war in that city. Many people who survived, they just entered the houses and they are still in those houses. And it's been a problem between them and M23 because now they are being chased. And it is still a problem. Even in Bukavu, there is a video posted on Instagram, similar video where people are looting in the houses because when there is a war like that and the government fled, many of them couldn't flee with guns because fleeing with guns just gives you up. So they just threw the guns and fled. So many civilians are now in possession of the guns, and there are also many civilians who joined the Wazalendo thing, which they were also given a lot of weapons to fight against M23, which means those guns are still in the civilians' hands. So they are still being used to loot. They are still being used to break into houses and many other stuff like that. So what I've generally speaking, what I've noticed is that many people who say that Goma is not safe are people who are outside of Goma or who are even outside of the country. But when you talk to the people who are actually in Goma, they say that the life is better and everything is working well. There is security and all that. And when the answer that I didn't give before regarding the prison, the prison there is this narrative, and I think sometimes they are right because if the war is happening and the war is against the government and the M23, sometimes the M23 get blamed for many things, even the ones that they didn't do, and sometimes it's very hard to say that they didn't do that because they are fighting against the government, right? But the prison break was done way before even M23 reached Goma. Okay, so the people who broke into prisons, it's not like the M23 are the ones who broke prisoners out of the prison. And the M23 are not the ones who actually raped all those people. So the Wazalendo, they opened the prisons, and the same people who were in the prison and then went to the other buildings that were occupied by women. Now they started doing massacres until they burned everything. So I get the point of blaming everything to the M23, especially to people who don't support them. But I don't think a lot of things that happened during that war they, again, I'm confused about that as well. I see why people blame it because they don't support it. Um, but we shouldn't say that everything that happened is was done by them because many things that they say actually was not done by the M23 rebel group. But again, they should be blamed. They should have some kind of percentage of accountability because at the end of the day, they are a rebel group.
Yeah. Do you think the Banyamulenge tribe is in a good space or in a better space with the M23 present or with the government being taking over things? Which one do you think would be better?
Right now, I don't know because where the Banyamulenge people live are still under control of the government, but we
Mm.
don't have a good life, which means we are still being analyzed. Even 2 days ago, many of our villages were burned by the same Wazalendo. So um, sometimes I don't know even what to answer because M23 is a rebel group. Um, and there is the government. And the problem about the Banyamulenge people is that the M23 war that many people are speaking about started in 2021, but the Banyamulenge war or massacres started in 2017. 2017, since 2017, the Banyamulenge people have been being massacred. And many villages of them were burned down. Millions of their cows were looted. And the people who were looting those cows and also unaliving people in mass were the same rebel groups, the Mai Mai, the Wazalendo, and they were being supplied weapons by the same government. There is not even once the government of Congo stood up and then even tried to protect them. 80% of their villages were burned down. 80% of their villages, hundreds of them, they were burned down, and they were burned by the same people who are called Wazalendo today. And they're the ones who are still doing that. So that happened since 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, and till today. So those are areas that are even still controlled by the government. There is that problem of trust. I wouldn't speak for the whole tribe because we still have many people who are actually in the Congolese army and people who are working in the government, who are ministers, the general who is overlooking the whole eastern region right now, fighting against M23. He is the Munyamulenge. So when I can say that the whole tribe would be better off with the government of Congo or be better off the whole M23 thing, but some people really see M23 being their savior because the government has failed over and over for the past 8 years. But there are also another big part that says, okay, these wars, we've been in them for a very long time. And these wars happen with the same narrative. They're coming to bring peace and all that. All those wars I said before, they even made our lives much worse because they came finding us in problems. By the time they left, we were even in big problems than they found us. So there is also another big part of us that says, okay, we can't trust these people. But we as a Munyamulenge, I only want anybody who can bring peace. It doesn't matter who. If you come and give me peace in Congo, um, that's all I need. Doesn't matter if it's the government or M23. If they come and give peace to Congolese people, I think that's okay.
Yeah. And to the Africans who are not listening or to the Africans who are not paying attention, what would you like to say to them?
I would say that the conflict in Congo is very complex. Even though many narratives on the internet has made it only about Rwanda or made it only about minerals, you have to also understand there is a big problem of discrimination in Congo. There is also a big problem of many rebel groups in Congo. There is also a very big problem of bad governance because we have a very big problem of bad governance in Congo. We also have a corrupt government. There are so many layers on this conflict other than just looking at one thing because some people want to make it look like that. And the other thing is that you have to do your research, especially when it comes to the Tutsi people and the Banyamulenge people. Many people call us Rwandese, many people call us many names, and sometimes the only way to prove or to be able to understand these issues and their story is to do your own research. Don't rely on somebody on the internet, even myself. Don't rely on the information that I gave you to be like, okay, these people are Congolese now. When somebody else said that they weren't, they were lying. No, don't trust anybody on these issues. Do your own research, and there are many reputable sources that you can rely on to give you information. Don't rely on Wikipedia because anybody can edit whatever on Wikipedia. Even myself right now, if I want to write your history, I can go in today and make the article about it. So you should dig deeper, go to the UN reports. There are many books that were published about this tribe. There are many international organizations that shared their history. There are many also researchers from different universities around the world that did a deep research on the Banyamulenge people, their origins, and how long they have been in Congo. I think that's one way to kind of understand that specific issue in Congo. Um, then when you want to think critically about the Rwanda thing and the mineral thing, you should also think it like this. If tomorrow Congo wakes up and there are no longer minerals in Congo, would Congo be at peace? Because in my point of view, it wouldn't. Because removing minerals wouldn't end the ideologies that have been going through for decades. It wouldn't end the discrimination in Congo. So, and when you get to that same analogy, I don't know how to say it, you should also think the same. If tomorrow we wake up and Rwanda is no longer at the border of Congo. Right now, Rwanda is in the west or is in US, whatever. Is no longer at the border of Congo. Will Congo be at peace?
Yeah.
In my point of view, it can't again because even though Rwanda may be used for those minerals. I used may because I don't want to confirm or give to some people who can use it sometime. Even though Rwanda and Uganda is also forgotten in these many issues, even though it has a hand in them as well. We didn't get to that. Even right now, Uganda is in Congo. So now, even though Rwanda or Uganda or Tanzania or Burundi can be used to exploit minerals in Congo, they're not for Rwandese because Rwanda or those countries they don't have any industry to manufacture phones. They don't have any industry to make any electronic, which means they are just a transport. Which means there is a bigger master somewhere there who they are using to get those minerals. Which is the reason I say that if tomorrow Rwanda is no longer at the border of Congo, Congo would still be in the same situation they are in today, or even worse. Okay, so and the other thing is that there are many people who hate on Rwanda. I think if you have reasons to do that, also understand that the government, there is government and there are civilians. So it's not like every decision that a country makes, the whole the whole country makes it. I mean, the people who live in that country, they have nothing to do with whatever that's happening. So you may hate whoever you want. You may choose to love whoever you want in that matter, but you have to also understand that a simple civilian shouldn't be responsible of many things that a country is doing. I shouldn't be responsible of the decisions that my government is making in Congo today. It's the same with Rwandese. So this ideology of pushing heads and narratives, I think is a problem as Africans. Imagine that in 2025 in Africa, we are still fighting for nationality. We are still discussing about the nationality of somebody. When you go in US after 5 years, you have a citizenship which gives you the right to do whatever you want, like a citizen. But after hundreds of years in Africa today, we are still fighting for the nationality. It is something that's very embarrassing and very disappointing. I mean, we can talk. There's so many information on this topic, but I think that's all. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that Paul Kagame captured very efficiently is I remember in one of his speeches, he spoke about how the international community is confused about this issue. And talking to you, Stephen, just brought out how complex this issue is. And I think one of the takeaway that I'm coming out with is the assertion that as Africans, we are still a long way away from accepting each other with our identities and not othering each other. I like the analogy that you used of saying you come to the States, you go to the States, and then you can get citizenship in 5 years. But people who were born in the Democratic Republic of Congo and other African countries as well cannot still identify themselves as nationalities or citizens of that country, which means we still have strides to go in terms of identifying ourselves with each other and also not othering each other within these African spaces as well. But thank you so much for making time for us. I know that it was still a lot to talk about, but I'm glad that we at least got closer to understanding some of the or how complex the complexities of the situation and the conflict in Congo is, because in some of the African countries we don't even know how complex it is, and also how to get involved, and how and what, and sometimes it comes out as if there's so much being said on the media, but we don't know what to sift through and how to get to the information. So please do follow Steven on TikTok. We're still gonna put his details at the bottom of the page, and also at the bottom of the screen. And also please do share your thoughts on the episode, and also engage, comment, and share your thoughts, and like the episode as well.